Welcome to Lead with Clarity. This is a space for leaders who want to grow without losing themselves in the process. Each episode is a short reflection on leadership, influence, and the inner work that shapes how we show up for others. It's not hype, not noise, just clear thinking for the journey of leading well. Today's episode is entitled, You're Not Micromanaging, You're Compensating. Here we go. There's a moment most leaders recognize but rarely talk about. It's the moment you find yourself scheduling a check-in that probably shouldn't need to happen, or rewriting work that should have been right the first time, or following up on a follow-up. You tell yourself it's just thoroughness, but somewhere underneath that you know something isn't working. Jim Collins named that moment directly, and he didn't let leaders off the hook when he did. He said this, "The moment you feel the need to tightly manage someone, you have made a hiring mistake. The best people don't need to be managed. Guided, taught, led, yes, but not tightly managed." He's not talking about style. He's not talking about preference. He's talking about a structural misalignment that started before this person ever sat down at their desk. Here's what I've seen in the leaders I've coached. The ones who micromanage most often aren't doing it because they're controlling people. They're doing it because the situation demands it. Because the person in that seat doesn't quite fit and everyone is compensating. That is an exhausting way to lead. And it's also unsustainable. You can't scale a team built on close supervision. You can't build a culture on correction loops. What you build instead is dependency. And dependency is the opposite of leadership. The best leaders I know almost never talk about managing people. They talk about developing them. They talk about removing obstacles. They talk about building environments where talented people can do what they were hired to do without friction. Here's where most people get this wrong. They hear Collins and they think he's talking about the employee. They think the message is, replace the employee you have to manage. Fire your way to a great team. That's the surface read, but it misses the point entirely. Collins is pointing at the leader. He's pointing at the process that brought that person into the role. He's pointing at the clarity or lack of clarity in what the role actually required. That failure happened upstream. The tight management is just the symptom. Think about your own hiring process. What did you actually screen for? Skills? Yes. Experience? Yes. But did you screen for autonomy? Did you test for initiative? Did you look for evidence that this person can run without constant direction? Most leaders don't. Most hiring processes are built to avoid obvious mistakes, not to surface the qualities that make tight management unnecessary. So, when that management need shows up, the organization has a process problem dressed up as a performance problem. The reframe is this. Tight management is information. It tells you something about the fit, something about the expectations, something about how the role was designed and how the hire was made. Use that information. Don't just tolerate the symptom. Before your next one-on-one, before your next team meeting, ask yourself an honest question. Where am I overmanaging right now, and what is that actually telling me? Not about the other person, but about the structure, about the clarity, about the front-end decisions that led here. The answer might be uncomfortable. In fact, it should be. That discomfort is where real leadership development happens. Collins gave us a diagnostic, not a verdict. Tight management is a signal. It tells you the system didn't produce what you needed, and it's asking you to look earlier in the process for a fix. The best people don't need to be managed, but they do need to be found. They need to be placed in roles that were designed clearly. They need to be led by someone who trusts them enough to stay out of the way. That's not passive leadership. That's the hardest kind, and it starts long before anyone ever shows up for their first day.